beautiful Tuesday morning. The sun is shining, and we are getting ready to start yet another amazing week of information and a whole bunch of how to's and maybe self assessments before you do that to really give you a better idea of how to be more successful in tasks that you choose to accomplish. And it's super important for us to understand why there might be many contributing factors that are really kind of impeding our success. Many aren't always something we're aware of, right? So it's very important when we start understanding our patterns and the way we have wired our brain in actually starting to set goals, because now you look at things a little differently. In the past, you may have, set a goal, whether it be New Year's, whether it be every Monday or this month, I'm going to go on vacation. So I'm going to do, eat a little less or exercise more. And then what tends to happen is that you start engaging in more positive behaviors, but somehow you get either really tired or you seem to what we call fail. And so I want to ask you guys a couple of questions today, because today we're going to start to really look at why we make the decisions that we make, right? We're going to look at, really start looking at why we have not succeeded in attaining our goals. We're going to start looking a little bit into the steps that we may be taking that will be contributing to us not feeling that sense of failure that we do feel when we don't get to attain the things that we say we want to attain. And it could be in a matter of days, in a matter of weeks or months, but many people seem to not stick to the things they say they're going to do because maybe they fail at something and say, okay, never mind throwing the towel. So I'm gonna ask you guys a few questions today, and I always want you guys to have a paper and a pen ready, because there are going to be some questions that I'm going to encourage you to ask yourself. And I think it's super important to really put things on paper, because then the brain can kind of conceptualize what it is that you're trying to do. It's trying to figure out where you're going with whatever information you're trying to gain. So I really do recommend all of you guys have paper and pen ready. Sometimes I do, like on my phone, you have the note section for those of us that have the iPhone. And so throughout the day, I'll have a tab that's just my random thoughts. And if I have a random thought, I'll just go and I'll type it into that little tab. And at the time, it might make sense. Later on, look at it and say, I don't know what this means, but I go back to notes that I would have written down during the day, random things that just come in. And you'll be surprised how much the brain's trying to tell you when it starts giving you those, what we're going to call random thoughts that aren't so random after all. They're things that you may be seeking to try to understand. So I want you guys to really take a look at yourselves this morning. Again, I'm going to ask you guys a few questions. We're going to talk a little bit about, the steps that you may be taking. I want to share a little bit about a resource that I love to use for families when I was in the education field. They were something called Khan Academy, Khan Academy. And in this particular program, there is somebody who's teaching many subjects. We're going to start with math first. So I love the fact that he had a blackboard. And in this blackboard, every step that he showed you to solve this particular math problem was in a different color. So say he wrote the question down in pink, and then the next step would be in blue, and then the next step would be orange. So I love the fact that in each step, he changes the color he uses, so if you work through the whole problem and maybe you don't get the desired outcome, you can go back and say, okay, which step was it that I missed? What did I not understand? And again, I love that it's color coordinated because it kind of draws your brain into, oh, it was this step right here, the one with the orange. So let's go back here and reconfigure what this looks like while I have all this information now. I think that goal setting is very much like that, especially when we go back and we start assessing why we might have not succeeded in a given task. You didn't fail, air quotes, at the whole thing. There's certain steps that you took or didn't take that actually prevented you from succeeding or attaining your desired outcome. So I want to give you guys that picture of the different steps and the different colors. So when we start looking at goal setting, you guys will have a better understanding as to why it is or where it is that maybe we're falling a little short. Could it be lack of consistency, right? Could it be lack of drive? Are you just not feeling the emotion at the time that you need it? And although all those things are important, they are very temporary, and there actually are things that we can do to fix those situations so we're not kicking ourselves in the butt later, right? So the first question I am going to ask you guys is, what do you keep kicking yourself in the butt for, right? What do you keep saying I'm going to do for myself or for others, and somehow there's just no follow through, right? So they're going to be very specific questions as we start looking at the steps that yet maybe you're taken or have taken that could be contributing to you having the sense of failure that many of us are very familiar with, right? So again, what do you kick yourself in the butt for? You'll find that many times it's about the same thing. So this is kind of like a cry for help to be like, this isn't just a specific thing. There's a pattern. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna, exercise 5 days a week and I'm gonna do this, whatever. All of a sudden you fall short in one, and everything else you kind of don't pursue or don't actually attain. So I really want you guys to think about these things, but also look at yourself with compassion as we're trying to understand, as we're trying to dissect what it is, what step, what happens in the middle of the time you actually start planning your goal and when you stop pursuing it, right? So if you kind of sit down with yourself and look and say, okay, what have I started? More or less, what's the time frame where I find myself feeling confused or like overwhelmed or not excited anymore, right? A lot of us, when you look at it, there's a time frame. We can last 3-4 days, we can last 5 days. Again, it's about programming. If your brain hasn't been there, it has a really hard time showing you how to get there. So that's why we have to be the ones navigating, and we have to be the one giving our brain the pictures, and we have to be the ones doing things even if we're not fully motivated. A lot of people think, or they get confused in thinking that, oh, I just don't have motivation. I just don't feel like it. So, so who cares if you don't feel like it? Many times you will find that even if you don't feel like doing something, once you start doing something, then you become more consistent. So it's kind of like you don't feel like cleaning your house, right? But all of a sudden there's company coming. Oh my gosh. So you're not really motivated to clean your house, but you start doing it because company is coming over. So whatever got you started, it'll continue to get you going. Why? Because now you're not basing it on holding on to an emotion to make you do things. So yes, I'm going to encourage you guys, if you have to do something, start doing it. The motivation comes afterwards. And you can also do it without motivation. You don't have to have an emotion attached to a task. I think a lot of us get that really confused, thinking that we're supposed to feel motivated. We're supposed to feel whatever. So let's get the feeling out of the way, because feelings come and go. They're very much like roller coasters. And then the goal for me is to teach you guys how to control the emotions, both the positive ones and the negative ones, right? Emotions are emotions. It doesn't mean that one's more important than the other. It just means that you can totally navigate what it is that those emotions do for you or prevent you from doing. So that's kind of like the bigger picture that I want everybody to take a look at today, to have an idea of what it is that happens in our lives that pretty much pumps the brakes. And, if it was just like pumping the brakes and that's it wouldn't be that big a deal. But for many of us, it pumps the brake, and then the negative self-talk comes. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't do it. I'm always failing. This is so hard. And the more we say those things, the more and more it reaffirms the fact that we don't need to attain these goals. So if you were okay with just not attaining them, you would have never set them to begin with, right? So in the middle of the time you start and the time you stop, very many times you start convincing yourself, you know what, I don't care. I'll do it next month. I'll do it next year. I'll do it whatever, right? And we kind of give ourselves permission to stop. And then once you do that, again, here comes the conversations we have with ourselves that are not very healthy. So we're going to start asking ourselves, again, a random group of questions. And I say random because a lot of us think that they are, but they're actual questions that your brain has been popping up and wanting you to ask yourself so you can break out of the cycle. So today we're going to talk about goal setting and figuring out what it is that we are doing to not attain the goals that we're actually setting. What steps are we not taking? What steps are we taking? So we're going to pick it apart a little bit and find out what it is that you can do differently to make sure that when you're attaining these goals, you're actually when you're setting them, you're actually attaining the goals that you desire in your heart to attain. Again, in the middle of them, when we're tired, we don't care. I'm just going to not, wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore. I'm going to wake up at 10 and do it. So a lot of times what people do is they'll say something like, I'm going to just use eating for an example, because that seems to be a very popular one, is they'll say things like, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to make myself a protein shake or a healthy breakfast. And then I'm going to get dressed to go to work or whatever the case is. And so like when you wake up in the morning and the alarm goes off at 5, you're like already thinking like, oh my gosh, why did I say I was going to do this? So now you have a series of things you promised yourself you were going to do, and you're already struggling with the first one. So because we feel a certain way about that one in particular, the first one, everything else pretty much piggybacks on the emotion that you're feeling. So if you don't get up at 5, you're like, you know what? I can't get up. I'm too tired. I didn't get that much sleep. Whatever your reasons are. Now you won't do the second one. Now you won't do the healthy preparation, right? Your protein shake, whatever. You probably won't do the exercise. You're like, oh, well, I already didn't get up at 5, so nothing else matters. And raise your hand if that sounds like something very familiar that you've done in the past, myself included. So I tell people all the time, we tend to put too much on our plate because you're motivated, you're excited. So all of a sudden the adrenaline is pumping, and now you want to make all these promises to yourself. And what happens is if you don't attain the first one because you're not as excited at 5 o'clock in the morning than you were the weekend before or the night before, when you're motivating yourself and you're on this high vibrational change emotion. And the next morning comes, it's like, oh my gosh, what happened to that emotion? It's gone. It's not even there anymore. So we have a hard time following through or following up with the things that we say we're going to do because the emotion isn't there anymore. And I want you guys to self-assess and really think about this stuff, because it's not just things like, you kick yourself in the butt for, but what promises do you keep making to yourself and others? I know I meet a lot of people that say yes to everything. And at the time that they say yes, they mean it, but then they have no energy during a week, or the day comes where they promise they were going to do something for somebody and then they don't follow through. It's like, what is that, right? Again, we overcommit and then we underdeliver. And so we can sit here and say, oh my gosh, I hate that I do that or whatever. Or we can figure it out. Why is it that I do that? And I can literally set myself up differently. So instead of setting yourself up to not complete tasks, take a look at your patterns. What have you done in the past? What emotions do you feel when you write all these amazing goals down? And then start asking yourself, what results have I gotten doing it this way? Okay. Another thing is, when you don't succeed at waking up, let's say at 5 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't mean you still can't get up at 7 or 8 and do the things that you said you were going to do. So I always say, start with one step first, so you'll see where you feel like you're falling short. Okay, if I tell myself, right, I'm nocturnal, I go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning, I'm getting better, but my best ideas come really late at night. I am not a morning person. Many times, I would see people wake up at 5 in the morning and run and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. I wish I could do that. So for a very long time, also with belief systems, right? I came from a family that would say things like the early bird catches the worm, or, whoever wakes up early, God helps, right? And for me, I didn't understand why I would feel so bad that I could not get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So if somebody like me would set goals about, I'm going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and do something, I'm already being unrealistic because I'm forcing my body to do something it's not designed to do. And that's the awareness I want you guys to have. So it didn't mean that I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and exercise because, that's when regular people do it, or that's when people who succeed do it. There's a lot of talk about people saying, if you want to be a millionaire, or if you want to have all these wonderful goals attained, then you have to start early in the morning. You have to start at 5. And I'm thinking, dang, well, what about the rest of us who have a really hard time waking up at 5? Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I tried. I would try to set my alarm at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would get up and go through the drills, but I was miserable during the day. And I kept saying, well, my body's going to get used to it. Well, I never did get used to it. So I had to really sit with myself and be very truthful with myself and say, you just don't wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. What can you do that still makes you valuable, or still makes it so you can attain these goals? Because remember, at this time, I thought only people who woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning were the ones that got the worm, were the ones that got, most of the beneficial qualities of life, right? That was my belief system. So as long as I believed it, I felt like I was always falling short. So I want you to ask yourselves, what do you guys believe about goal setting? What do you believe about if it is waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning? Does it mean that if you don't wake up at 5, you'll never be successful? You'll never be a millionaire? You'll never be happy because you didn't wake up early enough to take advantage of the full day? And many can say, oh, I don't believe that, but really dig into it, because you'll be surprised. I had no idea that my belief in that was so strong. So the more and more I went and started assessing, why do I not complete these tasks? I already felt like I was failing because I couldn't wake up at 5. So I had that backpack on. I'm gonna kind of use symbolism to be so think about it. If every morning when I woke up and it wasn't 5 o'clock, I already had something working against me in my own mind, in my own belief system. It didn't matter if everybody else didn't see it. That's what I believed. Even if I didn't really know that I believed that, that was a subconscious belief that I had. So I was already working against the grain. I already had 20 pounds of, I had 20-pound backpack on my back, getting ready to attain the next goal. So one thing at a time was so important. Let me just wake up at 5 and see how I feel. So I started saying one thing tomorrow. I'll wake up at 5 and I'm going to check in with myself and see how I feel. Well, I didn't feel so great. I did it again the next day, didn't like it, right? But I wasn't saying I'm going to wake up at 5. Well, I did say that. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, whatever. So if I couldn't even complete the first task, what made me think that everything else behind that was actually going to fall into place? If we don't have a strong foundation to start on, you guys, it is very, very difficult for us to attain goals because it's already not on a solid foundation. So those are the things I want you to ask yourself today. It's like, where do you wish you were, right? A lot of times we make promises to ourselves and then we're mad because we're not where we wanted to be. But we gave ourselves these unrealistic goals, I'm going to say, because a lot of us don't even know how to attain them. So very many common questions that I do ask people is say, what do you keep kicking yourself in the butt for? What promises do you keep making yourself and other people? Like, where do you wish you would be right now? How about later in a month, 2 months, 6 months, right? What steps are you taking? Those are very important. What vision and timeline are you envisioning for yourself, right? You're telling yourself, oh, in 6 months, I'm going to look like this. Or in, 4 months, my business is going to be developed. Or in 2 months, I'm going to have whatever. Like, what realistic timelines are you even saying you're going to be working in to attain these goals? What is the final destination? What is the expiration date, right? So what have you tried and has it worked before? Because many times you'll try something and you will succeed going that route. And I want you guys to pay attention to the steps that you took, because many times the steps you take are very similar to how you can use them to actually take steps for a particular goal. And so sometimes you'll find that you have a formula inside of you that works. And all of us have a formula that works because we've all attained goals, right? Sometimes they're just unrealistic goals and unrealistic timelines with unrealistic steps. It doesn't mean the goal itself is unrealistic. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you guys? When I'm breaking it down a little more about, it could just be the way you're getting it, you're trying to get it done. It could be how you're setting yourself up. It could be how you are actually pursuing those things, right? It could be whether or not you have an emotion at the time that you need. I need motivation, I need more energy, or whatever the case may be. So if you've already attained goals in your life, the formula is very simple. It's custom. It's not the same formula that everybody else uses. Sometimes you want to look at everybody else and kind of do a copycat. And if it's not part of your design, you're going to feel like a person that could never attain goals. And that is a lie. That is a lie. If you've tried to do it the way everybody else does it, you're always going to fall short at one point or another because you're not really figuring out what steps work for you. Nobody has taught you how to work through the emotion of you feeling like you're going to fail at something, right? Many people, when they do attain goals, there's a lot of really not so nice conversations, right? Like, so if you go to the gym and your body's like, please stop. No, keep pushing, keep pushing. And you're yelling at your body. And people don't realize that the body keeps score. The body does start figuring out that the way you talk to it makes it feel really, really bad, right? And I'm not saying that's for everybody, but if you're trying to follow goals that somebody has, said, okay, just do this and it doesn't matter how you feel, and you just keep yelling at yourself and you keep pushing yourself, like, yeah, to an extent, but some people take it to an extreme. So what happens is your body starts building up a whole bunch of trauma, your mind does as well, and then you just give up, right? So if this is something that's happened to you in the past, go back and ask yourself, when exactly did that happen? What day did that occur in? What week did that happen? What did I tell myself? How did I start feeling? How did I start mentally strong? And then in the middle, I found that I wasn't so strong after all. A lot of times it could be like, are you following up or following through? And it could be that you're doing all these things and all of a sudden you're supposed to follow up with something and you just don't feel like it. So you just don't do it. So again, there's steps. And if you can literally take steps and visualize them being in different color, what color is it that you struggle with? So we're going to analyze these behaviors, right? And they are going to give us better insight into our journey, our own individual journey, because I don't believe that there's a cookie cutter design for everybody. Because if there is, it would all be succeeding when it comes to attaining our goals. I hope that gives you guys a little bit of insight as to how you think, why maybe you maybe haven't succeeded at a particular goal, because a lot of us can be like, man, that's so weird. Like, I can do all these things, but when it comes to this, I have a really hard time attaining goals. Well, now you have to ask yourself additional questions. What is my belief system around whether or not I could even attain these goals? Some of us make plans and set goals already knowing in our subconscious mind we're going to fail. It's not going to happen. And I do believe that if you ask yourself, it'll get revealed to you like, wow, I do go in there already believing that I'm not going to be able to complete these tasks, that I'm not going to last. So the importance of understanding yourself and your way of thinking and your patterns and the steps you take, right, and the emotions that come and go is saying, wow, now I'm going to be more proactive. So what we end up doing is, by you knowing what's going to take place because you get to know yourself a little bit better, now you start putting safety guards in place. Right? If you know that on day 7, typically when you set goals, when that 1 week mark hits, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail. It's been a week. There's an internal trigger. And so now we're going to safeguard you. We're going to, create some tips and tricks to make sure that you're attaining the confidence you need, the follow through you need, not the emotion, but the I can do it. And I'm going to cross this barrier no matter what, because your brain knows that by day 7, that's it, you're done. So we have to push through that belief system, create something new, safeguard, and say, okay, day 7 is like the beginning again. It's like day 1. You can trick your brain into believing those things. So say you've been doing something for a week and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been doing it for a week. How about if you pretended that every day was your first day? If you can trick your mind into believing that every day of this task, of this goal setting, right, is the first day, you can literally promote the excitement of first days in your brain, and your body responds, right? I try doing stuff like that and say, okay, 5 more days, 4 more days. And it just feels like I'm gonna reach it. I'm almost there. And I feel like I just never get there. And it's kind of like I'm running on fumes. So what I do, I stop and I tap into, how did I feel the day I created this plan? What was it like? And I'll close my eyes and I'll envision how I felt when I was sitting down in my little planner, writing everything down, doing grocery shopping, buying the software, doing the training, whatever it is. I go back and I take my brain and I show it the picture of the excitement that I felt the first day I planned it. Try it. Try it. That I do know is universal. Why? Because the brain believes what you tell it. So if you give your brain a picture of excitement, of planning, of the vision that is that you want to attain, everything that you felt when you plan, the excitement, the confidence, whatever, you literally tap into it and you bring it into your now present moment. Very many times, like, oh my gosh, but that's not real. It is day 8. It doesn't matter. What about if you pretend it's day 1? Why would that be any different than it being day 8, 7? Why do we have to keep track? Right? A lot of times we'll get so excited, but if you have a program that says day 7, you're done, that's all you've ever done, then reset it. Reset it before you get to day 7. Reset it on day 6. Tomorrow will be my first day, right? And it's very important that you have your whys in your mind all the time. Why am I even doing this? Why am I even starting this? Why am I so excited about this? Right? You remember, you replace that with the, oh my God, I don't think I'm going to do it. This is so hard. Everybody else is eating this and I have to eat that. Don't worry about everybody else. Sit down, close your eyes, envision your goal once again. Envision how excited you were when you started this, and go back there and borrow those emotions. You can borrow them, they're yours. It's like we keep the storage, this bank of all these memories, of all these beautiful things and not so beautiful things. You can tap in whenever you want and borrow the emotions you need. Have you ever been like super sad and made yourself happy? How did you do that? I recommend people watching comedy. So say, for example, you're having a really sad moment. A lot of people go and like, they'll listen to this sad song or a sad movie because they just feel like crying. Awesome. Do that. Get your moment, get your tears out, hold on to that emotion, work it out. But when you're done, and you should be done sooner rather than later, throw on a comedy. How is that changes your emotions, right? You were feeling super sad and all of a sudden you're happy. What happened? You changed the picture. You change what you were feeding yourself. So somebody can tell you this is how you set goals, and they'll give you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step. Okay, you've tried that. Why does it not work? It's not because the formula doesn't work. It's because it's just not designed to fit your custom way of being. So I want you to go back and look at goals that you've actually attained and use the way you went through them, right? Like the steps that you took, and use that as fuel to show you this is how I work. This is what I need to do. So let me apply my formula that works for me in attaining this particular goal. A lot of you have worked really hard to attain some goals. Shoot, finishing school, finishing high school, finishing 7th grade, like it wasn't easy, but you did it. Why? What fueled you? Oh, my parents made you go. Yeah, but they didn't make you turn in the work. They couldn't force you to do that. There's an internal something that we all have. When I went to school, I wasn't excited about school. I shared it. I went to school forever. And then I got out of school and started working at schools. And I thought, God has a sixth sense of humor. Like, why is this happening? I never understood why I kept going to school. There was just this internal, like, you just have to go, you have to go, you have to go. Later on, I found out, but something inside of me was driving me there. I believe that each and every one of us need to find whatever that internal something is. And stop focusing so much about how everybody else does it and everybody else's life. What drives you? What works for you? Get to know yourself so well that you know exactly what it is that you need to do to tap into the successful energy we all have, because we've all succeeded at something. How did you do it? How did you do it? When you start thinking more about that, it's more exciting to start setting goals because you already know that you have what it takes to succeed. Yeah, it's a different whatever. It doesn't matter. The way you get there is the same. Determination, internal drive, excitement, picture, whatever it is. If you don't have it at the moment, go find it. Go borrow it from your bank. We all have this emotional bank. I like to call it that, right? Go borrow from it. But it's an emotional bank that's never ending. It has a whole bunch of emotions that you need. And it's funny when I think about that now, what I teach that now is saying you have all these emotions that you have, let's just say in your body, and you can definitely tap into whatever one you want. If you practice this, it's hilarious. I've sat with it when I started training people on emotions and how to grab them. And it's kind of like you're an actor, right? Like set some time aside and say, okay, make yourself sad and do it. And oh, I can't do it. No, think about random things that make you sad. Watch your body get sad. And then swap it, right? Okay, now make yourself scared. We all have pictures that we can give our head where we've been afraid, right? And sometimes we'll be afraid to feel it, but why? You could just swap it. Now be happy. Now feel shy. Now feel this. And I want to encourage each and every one of you to sit with your emotional bank and borrow emotions. Just play with it. This is the way you train your brain to let it know that you are in control, that you are going to navigate. You'll be surprised how much goal setting has everything to do with emotions. When you feel emotional about something, it either drives you or it stops you. So we get to decide how we fuel our, let's just say, our energetic vehicle. If you keep going or if you keep stopping, there's definitely something there that you can pick up on. You're going to understand your patterns. And so, again, I can tell you this is how you're going to set goals, step 1, step 2, step 3, but you won't be able to understand it until you understand your internal driving force. Once you tap into that, then you customize the way it works for you. And that's exactly what I do with all my clients. They're all different, right? So I get to know them. I help them assess themselves and say, what do you want? What are your desires? And everybody feels like they can't get there. We all have self-doubt. All of us do. And if somebody tells you they don't, they're lying to you, because we all do. A lot of us just don't let it rule our lives, because for many of us, we allowed it to do it for so long, and we say no more. So you learn to navigate your emotions. You learn to put the steps in place. You grab things as you go. It's literally like a buffet. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need that. I'm going to grab some of this, right? But only you know what it is that you need. So we need to stop focusing on everybody else in their lives and how they're doing things and really hone in on who am I and what do I do? So I know that my best thinking comes 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I'm not mad at myself anymore. I love that I can embrace how I'm created, right? That's just who I am. I love being alone at night and really processing what I need to. I can create plans and podcasts and trainings. I create them at night. But if I was still mad at myself because I didn't do it at 5 o'clock in the morning, where would I be right now? And the emotions are real. So learn who you are, learn how you operate, learn about the excuses you make, learn about the time frames, learn about what's helped you succeed in the past, and customize your own plan for success. I'm not telling you to set goals right now. I'm telling you to understand how you think, how you work, what you believe, what that internal force is, what it feels like. What does it feel like when I fail? What does it feel like when I succeed? Which emotion would I rather have? And dip into that bank of emotions that I'm sharing with you that we all have. And we all get to listen. But we don't have to yell at ourselves, right? We don't have to be mean to ourselves. We don't have to call ourselves names. Why? It's not going to help you get any better. If anything, I'm going to ask you to forgive yourself for many things that you have in the past not been so nice to you about because you didn't know any better. If you want to attain goals, but you're constantly focusing on you failing them, how is that going to help motivate you into attaining new ones? You're always going to think about you failing. That's going to be at the forefront and center. So guess what? It's going to prevent you from actually setting goals that you want to set for yourself because you're already working against yourself. So how about you forgive yourself for the things that you've done in the past that you didn't even know any better about? 1. 2, start spending time with yourself. Play with your emotions. Figure out how you turn the switch off and on. Go back and say, hey, I succeeded doing this. How did I do that? Like literally spend time investigating, working on yourself, understanding yourself. There will be no regrets, I promise. And like, what do you do with all that? Just write it down. Just write it down. You'll be surprised that once you have the awareness of what that looks like, how it does help you bring up the formula that works best for you. With compassion, with love, with understanding. That's always very, very important to have forefront and center, for sure. This was fun, exciting. Gonna have you guys write in some questions. If you guys need support, if you want to understand yourself a little bit better, this is just the beginning of many steps. And I say many because there's more than one, to really understanding yourself. Enough with the negative self-talk. It doesn't help you do anything. Maybe at one point it pushed you to lose a few pounds. How is that sustainable in your life? It doesn't work. You're going to ask yourself questions today, right? I'm hoping you'll use some time today to start asking yourself questions like, what have I tried in the past? What have I tried? And start looking at similar patterns. I also want you to think about, like, why do you think you fail? And how do you respond when you feel like you failed? Forget it, right? There's a common quote that people say, like, if you set off to like eat healthy and, at lunch you have a burger instead. Oh, forget it, I'll start tomorrow. No, just start at the next meal. And don't beat yourself up about it, because it's not so much about how you fail or why you fail. It's about how you respond to failure. Because inside our body, I want you to think of yourself as a 2 or 3-year-old that's inside your body. And you go and have this burger instead of the salad. Oh my God, I can't believe whatever. And you're literally yelling at yourself, at this 2-year-old that's living inside of you. Your body feels like you're really upset at it. So your body, what it does is it creates weight to protect you. It creates illness. And so what you don't know is that you're being counteractive. You're being counterproductive, really. So if you're mad because you had a burger, okay, the burger wasn't bad enough. Now you're yelling at yourself about it. So your poor body's like, I'm sorry. You're literally beating it up. And people don't understand the energy behind that. But I'm going to tell you that there is huge energy being sent when you're yelling at yourself, and your body's just like, I'm sorry. And so like you're punishing it. And it just swells. It gets sick. Another thing, if weight is the thing and if food is the problem, when you're eating something, a burger or soda, whatever, and you're mad at yourself, oh my God, I shouldn't eat this. It's going to make me so fat. It's going to make me so unhealthy. You're already cursing your food. oh my God, this goal, I'm going to fail. You're already cursing the journey. And so I want you to understand the power you have in your words. Because you say, why can't you just sit there and if you have a burger, enjoy it? Enjoy your burger, enjoy your soda. Take a deep breath and say, you know what? My body obviously really needed this right now. I'm sorry, body. Thank you for accepting this. Look at it with gratitude and you'll change the energy of that food. And that juju, bad juju won't hurt your body, right? There are scientific proof. There's a lot of proof that shows you that you change the molecules in the food and the water depending on how you talk to it. So if you're going to want a burger, eat it. If you didn't exercise one day because you were tired, honor your body. I'll start tomorrow. We'll do an evening workout instead, right? Don't just be mad at yourself because you did something you said you weren't going to. Forgive yourself and pick up right there and then and live according to what you said you were going to do. Because let me tell you what you've been doing. If you failed at something and you're yelling at your body or you're responding in a way that's not so healthy, you're just creating a vicious cycle and a very unhealthy pattern. And don't take my word for it. Go back and see how it's worked for you. So much more that we're going to talk about when it comes to your words, the energy that we send to the things that we partake in, the people that we're around, the decisions we make, how we treat ourselves when we don't attain goals. All that just sets you guys back. All right. So excited to be here with you guys today. Remember, we're live on Facebook. Would love for you to jump over and join our community there to ask questions, to build this beautiful community of us people just trying to live better lives, right? All while understanding why we do what we do, because isn't that a beautiful thing? Like, why do I do what I do? I'm not okay with just saying I do this and that's it. Why do I do it? How do I do more of this or less of that? That's what I want to know. So we're all going to be private investigators and trying to figure out our own lives before we go trying to fix everybody else's life, right? All right, feel free to call, text, send an email. We are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all over the place. Super excited to have been with you guys here this morning, sharing some insights of the things that I've learned in my life. And I've had the privilege of helping others learn as well to live a more fruitful life, right? Set in one's heart's desire and honestly attaining the things that bring you more happiness and to help you create the life that you're proud to live in. Love you guys so much. Have an amazing day and awesome night. We will see you guys here Thursday morning. Bye, guys.